In the last video, we understand how the init state function work. Likewise, we have other functions or other things as well in a stateful widget, which is called a stateful widget lifecycle. So there are a few of the functions which we can use in a stateful widget. The first one is the init state, which we have already discussed. This is the first method called when the widget is created. It is called once and only once. It is usually used to initialize properties that rely on this widget's parent in the tree, subscribe to streams, change notifiers, or any other object that could change the data on the widget. So this we have discussed. The next is did change dependencies. This method is called immediately after init state and when dependency of the state object changes via inherited widget. So you can just see it's did change dependencies. I will simply write print did change dependencies. I will restart the app and here you will see first init state will be there, then did change dependencies, then the build function. This method is rarely needed or used. The docs of the Flutter also suggest that it could be useful if you need to do some remote calls, but when an inherited widget updates. This concept is not that important. I have been building apps from the lot of years, and this thing is not important. Third is the build function. This method is called every time the widget is rebuilt. It is a required and must return a widget. So this is the build function. We already know that it will be called in the third place. First init state, second did change dependencies, and third build function. Fourth is did update widget. This is also a function or given by the stateful widget. It is called if the parent widget changes and has to rebuild this screen, that is this widget. So what I mean is, suppose here this data is coming from the parent widget, that is from the previous screen, and here did update this thing is called if this dot suppose name not equal to old widget dot username, or sorry, you can just say this dot widget dot username. So print did update change. So now we cannot show it, but you have to understand the concept. Suppose a typical case is when a parent passes some variable to the children via the constructor, which is this case which we have already done. The parent is passing some data via the constructor, and if this if the parent widget's data changes, then this build function will also recall and show the changes done. So Flutter calls the build function after this, so no need to write set state on your own. This function is also not used that much, but when we are learning about stateful widgets, at least you should know, okay, these terms also exist. Fifth is set state. We already know that this is a set state thing, and after that the build function is called again, and the UI is built. This is not a new thing. Sixth is deactivate. This function is called when the object is removed from the tree. This is again rarely used. This method exists basically because state objects can be removed from one point in a tree to another, and it can be removed temporarily. I will just show you that this also exists. Deactivate like this. I will just print deactivate. And the final and the last one is dispose. This is very important. This method is called when this object, that is when this stateful widget is removed from the tree permanently. Here we should release any resources retained by the object, like stopping animation or whatever. One example is when this method is called while using the push replacement of the navigator. In the next session only we will be talking about navigation. So that is from one page to another page. If we go, then the previous page should be disposed properly. There should be no memory leak. So in a real world application, it is very much important to use this dispose method. Here we will stop some animation or database calls or whatever which is not required later on. So, so these are the life cycle of a stateful widget. First is init state, second ditching dependencies, third is build function, then fourth is if we do any, if the parent widget does any changes to the variables here, so then the update widget is called. We compare the two values, and then the last one are the deactivate, which is also not that much use, but this dispose thing is used a lot. So you have to make sure you know all these terms, and when we are using it later on, you are not confused on what is this or is this anything new, because at least the concept we know. Later on, practically, we will learn how to use it. Thank you.